Greetings and welcome to this week's edition of Spotlight on Siouxland for this next to last weekend of August 2007. I'm Paul Guggenheimer. Great to have you with us on these Clear Channel radio stations. The Vietnam Memorial Wall is coming to Siouxland. It will be in Cherokee, Iowa, and also South Sioux City, Nebraska this fall, coming up in just a few weeks, in fact. And here to talk about that project and other aspects of the Vietnam War is a Vietnam veteran himself and a man who is on the planning committee for this event, Mr. Ralph Swain. Ralph, welcome to the program. How are you?
Very good, Paul. Good to be on the air.
Tell us a little bit about when we think of the Vietnam Wall, we think of the wall in Washington near the reflecting pool on the mall in Washington, D.C. This is, I guess, a replica of that. Tell us a little bit about what it is exactly.
Yes, actually there's about three walls that transport and move around the country for exhibition by different organizations, but each one of them is a 50% replica of the original wall that is in Washington, D.C. So it still has the pull and the emotional appeal that especially for those that can't make the trip to D.C.
How big is this wall, and how do they transport it from town to town?
Well, the wall is about 285 feet in length. It's a shallow V-shaped. To transport it, it's broken into panels. And, of course, the wall, the original granite wall in D.C., is in panels, but they're not movable. So what they did is they designed the moving walls with the same panel construction, but being able to disassemble it. The wall, for example, that's coming to South Sioux City is coming in two large flatbed trucks. These walls move all year long around the country, and there's generally a 2-year wait to get on the list to get the wall in your area, and they usually stay up for generally about 5 days.
Does the wall that travels around the wall that is coming here, does it include all of the names that are on the wall in Washington?
Absolutely. It's a perfect replica. All 58,284, 85 some names. Now, keep in mind that because of new forensic studies and techniques that are used that weren't in use at the end of the Vietnam War, many names can be added to the wall as they recover forensically the remains from overseas, which is still going on. There's about 8 forensic teams at any one time working in Southeast Asia, Laos, and Vietnam, and Cambodia.
And how many walls would you say are added now in a given year?
Walls or
did I say how many names are added to the wall in a given year?
You know, that varies. There's some great websites that constantly update that from the government. And the most recent email just received a few days ago, they just forensically identified 4 additional remains, and including one from Iowa. So it's an ongoing event. And so that list of POW MIAs, which used to be in excess of 3,000, is under 2,000 now. It's amazing that the scientific forensic techniques that have been developed not only are being used for the Vietnam recovery, but Korean War and World War II. There's actually teams working in Korea and a team working in Europe trying to recover remains.
And how do they end up, how does a community get the wall to come to their town?
Basically, all 3 walls have websites and contact information, and you really have to get on a list, and then, of course, you have to come up with a deposit. For example, the wall that's coming to Cherokee is going to cost $4,000. So basically, when the wall comes, the committee is formed in the community, and then you simply solicit supporters and sponsors and donations to cover that. And it's not just setting up the wall. You create very very important ceremonies, opening ceremonies and closing ceremonies, and activities during the week, such as getting the schools involved if it's during the school year, and just really taking advantage of those 4 or 5 days that the wall is here as an educational experience for people. The walls go up, and they stay up 24 hours a day once they're set up, and they are manned 24 hours a day. With volunteers, both Vietnam veterans and non-vets, all the way through the day. And some people like to come very early in the morning when very few people are here, just because they have a personal connection to the Vietnam War, either through loss of a family member or a friend, or having experienced Vietnam on a tour. And so sometimes they just want to come when there's a minimum number of people. And I can remember when we brought the wall to Sioux City back in the early 80s, and it was set up in Hubbard Park. I pulled so-called guard duty early in the morning, because it's always hard to pull people in from midnight to 4 in the morning. I can remember like 2 in the morning in the dark, except for the lighting that lights the wall. You'd glance up and you'd see a lone figure in front of the wall just appear out of nowhere, just in deep thought and concentration. It has a very emotional pull for many, many people, not just those who experienced the Vietnam era, but even people who were perhaps too young or not even born. There's just a very strong emotional pull.
So it's kind of it's a 24-hour thing where people can come at any time.
Yes.
And it sounds like it takes a lot of planning, and both financially and logistically, for a community that's bringing the wall to their town. Right.
I wanted to mention the 2 different dates. Cherokee, the wall is coming it'll be at the Cherokee County Fairgrounds, September 13th through the 17th. The opening ceremonies will be 7 p.m. Thursday, the 13th of September. And then that Saturday, the 15th, there will be a whole series of events. We'll have military color guards and Air Force flyover, parades, and so forth. And the Vietnam multimedia show, which I've been doing since the mid-1990s, which is a multimedia show that takes people back to that era. And it's sights, sounds, and smells of wartime Vietnam. And that'll be be there as well as in South Sioux. And then the closing ceremonies in Cherokee are at 6 p.m. Sunday, the 16th of September. Next month in October, following the September showing in Cherokee at South Sioux City, Nebraska, at the Dibble Soccer Complex near the river, beginning October 18th, which is a Thursday, and it will stay up until Sunday the 21st. Opening ceremonies at the wall in South Sioux start Thursday the 18th of October at 11 a.m., and closing ceremonies are Sunday the 21st of October at around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We're going to have all kinds of supplemental things going on during those 4 or 5 days. There's going to be a moving storyboard called Legacy of the Wall that'll arrive September 21st and stay all the way through the month of October and move. It's a series of panels giving the history of the wall and Vietnam images, and that'll travel to different places, the public museum and schools and so forth. We'll have school tours during the school day where classes can come down and visit the wall. There'll be the reading of the names of all the casualties from the South Sioux area. And then every evening, taps will be sounded at sunset each day. And that again, is a very moving experience to hear taps.
I'll bet.
Yes.
It's understandable the kind of experience that this would be, the fact that it would be very moving for a Vietnam-era veteran or even somebody who was alive when that conflict was going on. But what is it how do you explain the hold that it has on people who were not around, who not only did not serve in the military during the Vietnam War, but just who weren't even alive then? Why does this have the kind of hold that it does on the younger generation?
There's kind of a mystique around the Vietnam War, because if you look at the younger generation, they get a smattering of it in their high school textbooks, for example. But I think there's so many things surrounding the Vietnam War that are really draw the people's attention, because, number one, over 58,000 dead. That has an impact. And then you look at the wall itself, and you see all 58,284 names on there, and by year, and you see in one long horizontal glance the impact that 58,000 plus lives have had, just American lives, not to mention lives from other countries with allied nations, as well as with the Vietnamese, both north and south, close to 2 million dead. And as in any war, majority always ends up being the civilian dead as opposed to combat. That's just what happens in war, and it's a shame. It's not just two armies fighting each other. People get killed, people get involved in the crossfire and the bombings and so forth. Tremendously high civilian casualties as well as military.
Is the wall that travels, is it I know that it looks similar, but what's it made out of? Because the one in Washington is the black granite.
Yes, the black granite. The traveling wall is actually the structure is built around plywood, but then the outer coating, the panels themselves are in one case a plexiglass, a very strong plexiglass, and in another a special, very expensive type of plastic. But they do have the same black granite look to them.
And that kind of reflective,
yes,
really shiny.
Right. Just the whole history of the Memorial Wall in Washington is fascinating because it was a competition. It was the first time that no federal money was spent. It was all raised through donations by a nonprofit organization headed by a number of Vietnam veterans and non-veterans who felt it's time to build a wall. And so the competition was put out nationally. Not a single penny of tax money or federal money went into the wall, which has not been the case in the previous memorials of other structures in D.C. It's interesting that as late as the Vietnam Memorial Wall was built, long after 1975, that we still hadn't had a Korean or a World War II. Now we have a very impressive Korean and a very impressive World War II monument, which I haven't seen those, but I have my plans and my plane ticket to go back to D.C. in November during Veterans Day for a 3-day visit because it'll be the 30th anniversary of the Vietnam Memorial Wall, and a lot of ceremony is planned for that. So I want to take the opportunity to pay my respects to the Korean and the World War II memorials as well.
Why do you suppose that the Vietnam one went up first?
Well, I can't really say. I haven't really figured that out, or if there's any reason for that. But I think that once the Vietnam Wall went up, it tended to trigger the demand that we need to honor all of those. Certainly, there were memorials all over the country for the Korea and the Vietnam War, mostly constructed by individual communities and, in some cases, states. And now Vietnam memorials appearing in communities all over the country and funded at the state level also. But I'm not sure why that was, whether it was financial or I can't answer that.
Our guest is Ralph Swain. He is a Vietnam veteran and also a person who is involved in bringing the Vietnam Memorial Wall to the Siouxland area. It will be appearing in Cherokee and South Sioux City next month. And what are those exact dates again, Ralph?
Well, in Cherokee, it's showing up in September next month, 13th through the 17th. That's a Thursday through, 16th, Thursday through Sunday. And then the following month in October at South Sioux City, it will be October 18th through the 21st, which is also a Thursday through a Sunday. And they spend the rest of the time disassembling it. And, of course, again, volunteers from the community that we select help their crew with setting up and disassembling. It's quite a process. And once it's placed on the trucks, the flatbed trucks, it then hits the road to the next community. So, like I said, most of the moving walls have a 2-year waiting period. So for 2 years out, they have their itinerary set up, traveling this wall around the country.
How do you account for the change in perception and just how different things are now in terms of how we think of the Vietnam War, the respect that the country has for the men and women who were involved in fighting in that conflict? It wasn't always that way. I mean, especially when the war was ending and immediately after it concluded in the 70s.
The Vietnam War was a very unpopular war, especially beginning in 1968 after the Tet Offensive, when the national polls indicated shortly after the conclusion of the Tet Offensive of 68 that the majority of Americans polled had now turned against further involvement in Vietnam. So being a very unpopular war, many Vietnam veterans, if not most, returned and just wanted quiet lives, and in many cases didn't even want to be known as having served in Vietnam because there was a lot of animosity toward the war, and a lot of that reflected on the soldiers. I have to say that at that time, and to be honest, many Vietnam veterans didn't even feel welcomed at the military service clubs around the country, and I can tell you that from experience going back to Colorado.
Was that perception accurate? I mean, they felt that they weren't welcome. Were they, in fact, not welcome?
Absolutely, and I'm not saying that in every case, but
why? Why was that?
Well, see, I can very well remember some of the comments from, and again, in that period of time, some members of VFW or American Legion who looked down their noses at Vietnam vets coming home and said, you know, that wasn't a real war. We fought the real war, or they had, and that was mostly out of ignorance because they had no idea that the Vietnam War, to a great extent, was nowhere near like Korea or Vietnam, or Korea or World War II, because you didn't have fully uniformed armies on both sides fighting each other across a line, but it was a guerrilla war. In the year I spent in Vietnam, I never saw a uniformed enemy, and yet I was shot at, had hand grenades thrown at me, sniped at, because in an insurgency such as that, the citizenry raises arms and...
kind of like Iraq.
Yes, it's very similar to Iraq. Very similar from that standpoint, that you don't have a uniformed enemy. So it's almost like the soldiers become like a police officer, where the disadvantage is always on your side because you don't know who's the enemy and who isn't. And it has terrible consequences because innocent people can get killed simply because they look suspicious, or they may not understand your order, and they keep proceeding, and you have to take a chance and fire. There was a lot of unfortunately indiscriminate killing, and that happens in many wars. But I think that getting back to the point of not feeling comfortable joining service clubs, that has dissipated and disappeared, partly because Of course, the number of World War II veterans and Korean veterans is quickly dissipating, but also an understanding has come about. More Vietnam veterans now have moved into leadership roles in both VFW and American Legion, into as high as the commander's positions. And, of course, now it's the Vietnam veterans who are the predominant veterans who are alive today. And having experienced that shunning to a great extent, Vietnam veterans are very open to the Iraq and the Afghan veterans that are coming home today. So there's a real bond.
So they, because of what they went through, they're able to administer much more of a sensitivity and understanding toward today's Iraq and Afghanistan
Right,
veterans.
because you know, when we fought, when the invasion of Iraq occurred, okay, the second time was to depose Saddam, which we did. And then, you know, we know and remember the pictures of President Bush on the carrier kind of officially announcing the end of the war. But it was really not the end of the war, because just as you had in Vietnam, it becomes a very significant police action of how do you keep the peace. We're much more heavily involved in Iraq and Afghanistan now in that role, even more than Vietnam, because in Vietnam it was a constant war until we withdrew. And in Iraq, we didn't go into Vietnam and depose anyone, and then now we're in a police action.
Right.
That's the difference between Vietnam and Iraq and Afghanistan. Yes, it is a war. The war is continuing. It's just a different phase, and it's just as deadly and in many cases more deadly.
Well, I think we've lost more soldiers now, or more soldiers in Iraq since Mission Accomplished was announced back in, my gosh, it was 2003. So we're looking at, you know, it's been 4 years, and it still goes on. Our guest is Ralph Swain. He is a Vietnam veteran, and he's involved with bringing the Vietnam Memorial Wall to the Siouxland area. And again, that's next month. We'll give you the dates one more time when we wrap up the show here in a few minutes. But because of what you experienced when you first came back from Vietnam, and I don't know how it compared with the experiences of other Vietnam vets, but as you mentioned earlier, it wasn't the kind of welcome home that soldiers from other wars got, at least not right away. But is that what motivated you to get involved in this, to be involved as you are, as deeply in the effort to recognize those who sacrificed their lives for the United States in Vietnam?
Yeah, I think the motivation has adjusted slightly. When I came back from Vietnam, I was involved in kind of an education campaign of trying to work with groups to let the American citizens know what Vietnam was really like, and to work toward winding things up and getting our troops home. My motivation now with the war going on both in Afghanistan and Iraq is, and relationship to my activities with the Vietnam, is more to bring an understanding to the American public that irregardless of the politics and the reasons for getting involved in war overseas, is to focus on honoring American soldiers who give their lives or limbs or emotional scars or whatever suffering that comes out of the war, the recognition that they deserve for that sacrifice. It's a sacrifice any way you look at it.
Regardless of where you fight.
Yeah, absolutely, irregardless. Vietnam veterans are, and I'm sure Iraq veterans are the same. You know, we get a bunch of us together and we have every political opinion you can imagine, but we come together as a brotherhood, and there's an understanding that we all, in different respects, in different time period, went through the so-called Vietnam experience or the Iraq or Afghan war experience, and that no one else, unless you have been there, can really appreciate. And so it brings veterans together in a common bond. And the political, when we get together, in all the meetings I've had with Vietnam veterans, with all the different disparate opinions of how they felt about the war or the politics behind it, I can't remember any time where there was any disagreement or argument, political arguments. It was like, guys, we're here, we're healing, or we've healed, and let's just enjoy the camaraderie. You can't change history. And it's a very comforting, healing feeling to be among vets. You meet a strange vet, someone who you've never met before, and if you're a veteran, there's a connection. It's amazing. It's just automatic connection.
A veteran of the Vietnam War or any war.
Or any war. And I always, when I see someone in uniform, I always shake their hand and say, welcome home, or make some comment. In fact, today, a few minutes ago when we left, we were both at the Siouxland Historical Railroad Association's event that was taking place today and takes place again Sunday. And as I was pulling out of the parking lot, the attendant noticed that I was a veteran from a plate on my car. And he just said, thank you for serving. It's just that type of recognition that's all veterans want. And many of us coming back from Vietnam didn't get. But better late than never.
And how gratifying is it for you, and I know you can't speak for everybody, but as far as you can tell, for others, to experience that change in perception, to go from not really being welcomed back to being now finally fully appreciated?
It is. It's a wonderful feeling, and the only thing in the back of my mind is it's a shame for those that maybe experienced not a very warm welcome, who are no longer with us, to experience the change in public attitude toward that. But no, it is, as I said, it's very healing for people who have had to either stuff their feelings or hide the fact that that they served in Vietnam. And that happened in World War II. I talked to so many students whose grandparent was a World War II vet, and for years and years never uttered a word about their experiences during the war, and some never do. And others eventually will open up a bit. That is very common when you experience very traumatic events over an extended period of time, and even experiencing events and incidences which you're not proud of, and you just don't want those images haunting you. So you try to move on and bury it. And some are very good at that. I feel I was certainly very good at being able to do that, but there were periods of my life shortly after I came back from Vietnam that I had flashbacks and nightmares and yelling in my sleep and startled responses and things like that. Over the years, it dissipates, and there's ways to deal with it and to make it more comfortable to handle.
Just a few seconds left. Obviously, the Vietnam Memorial Wall probably goes a long way toward that healing for veterans.
Very much so. Another healing, which not all veterans support, is going back to Vietnam. And a number of my friends have made the trip back. And that has a very healing aspect to it because of the warmth and friendship the Vietnamese show to Americans, particularly American veterans.
That's good to hear. Well, the Vietnam Memorial Wall is coming to Siouxland. And again, those dates very quickly. We've got about 20 seconds
Cherokee, the wall's coming to Cherokee September 13th through the 16th. It'll be at the county fairgrounds. South Sioux City, Nebraska, October 18th through the 21st at the Dibble Soccer Complex.
Oh, very good. Ralph Swain, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm Paul Guggenheimer. This has been Spotlight on Siouxland. We'll see you next week.